Emily almost ignored the call because Sunday evenings were the hardest, the quiet stretching too long, the house too still, but when she saw Daniel's name on her phone, she answered, and from the first second she sensed something different in his voice, lighter, careful, as if he were holding back a secret, and he told her they were going on a family trip, just a few days, nothing big, a drive, some fresh air, time together, and Emily smiled politely even though her heart hesitated, because trips had become complicated since her husband died, every suitcase reminding her of what was missing, every hotel room echoing with memories, yet Daniel kept talking, filling the space, saying she deserved a break, saying he wanted her there, not asking but gently insisting, and she felt that familiar pull of motherhood, the quiet way children could still guide their parents without realizing it, so she agreed before fear could stop her, and after the call ended, she stood in her kitchen. Longer than necessary, looking at the clock, wondering why her chest felt tight, why a simple trip felt heavy with meaning, and later that night she opened the guest room closet where old travel bags slept untouched, pulling one out slowly as dust rose in the air, and as she packed she found herself choosing clothes more carefully than usual, folding sweaters she had not worn since before the loss, holding a blue dress against herself in the mirror and almost laughing at the thought of needing it, yet still placing it neatly inside, because something inside her whispered that this trip mattered, and the morning of departure arrived with clear skies and cool air, Daniel pulling into the driveway with his usual easy confidence, his smile wide, his eyes bright, and Emily noticed how grown he looked, how steady, and for a moment she realized he wasn't just her son anymore but a man making choices, guiding moments, and as they drove away from the familiar streets of their Chicago neighborhood, the city slowly giving way to open roads, Emily watched the scenery change and felt her thoughts drift, memories surfacing uninvited, of earlier years, of road trips filled with laughter and arguments and love, of a life where she had not yet learned how quickly things could change, and Daniel talked about small things, work, weather, music on the radio, but he avoided certain questions, gently steering conversations away whenever Emily asked where exactly they were going or why. He seemed so excited, and she let it go, trusting him more than she trusted herself, trusting that whatever waited ahead would be faced one step at a time, and as the miles passed, Emily felt both nervous and awake, as if something dormant inside her was slowly stirring, and she pressed her hand against the window, watching clouds move freely across the sky, thinking about how long it had been since she felt free herself, unaware that this trip, which she believed was just another family obligation, was the beginning of a carefully planned moment, one designed not to remind her of what she had lost, but to show her what she still deserved. The town appeared suddenly after a long stretch of road, small and quiet, wrapped in trees and lake air, and the moment Emily saw the water through the windshield, her breath caught because the place felt familiar in a way she could not explain, and Daniel noticed her silence but said nothing, parking near a wooden lodge that smelled of pine and old memories, and as Emily stepped out of the car, the cool breeze brushed her face, stirring something deep inside her chest, something she had kept buried for years, and she looked around slowly, noticing the calm streets, the soft sound of waves, the way time seemed to move differently here, slower, kinder, and they checked in without hurry, Daniel carrying her bag even though she told him not to, and that small gesture made her heart ache in a warm way, reminding her how much life had changed, how roles had shifted without her noticing, and later they walked along the lake as the sun lowered, painting the water gold, and Emily felt memories rising uninvited, not sharp or painful, but heavy with feeling, moments from another life when hope came easily and love felt simple, and she wondered why Daniel had chosen this place, of all places, but she did not ask, because part of her sensed that answers would come when they were ready, and as they walked, she noticed other people nearby, couples laughing softly, families sharing quiet moments, and instead of feeling lonely, Emily felt strangely connected, as if she belonged among them again, not just watching from the outside, and when they sat on a bench, Daniel spoke about small things, about how busy life had become, about how he worried she spent too much time alone, and Emily wanted to reassure him, to tell him she was fine, but the truth caught in her throat, because she wasn't sure anymore, and the lake reflected the fading sky as darkness settled gently, and that night in her room, Emily unpacked slowly, her hands brushing over the blue dress again, and she wondered why she had brought it, shaking her head at herself, and just as she turned off the lamp, a soft sound at the door made her pause, and she found a folded note on the floor, written in Daniel's familiar handwriting, asking her to trust him tomorrow, nothing more, and she sat on the edge of the bed holding that small piece of paper, feeling nervous and curious at the same time, because trust had once cost her deeply, and yet here she was, ready to give it again, and sleep came slowly as her mind raced with questions, with thoughts of the past and fears of disappointment, while outside the lake remained calm, hiding its depth, and Emily did not know that this quiet town, this careful pause in her life, was not meant to remind her of what she had lost, but to open her heart to what she had never truly stopped wanting. Morning arrived softly, sunlight slipping through the curtains as Emily woke with a strange mix of fear and hope sitting heavy in her chest, and for a moment she forgot where she was until the smell of lake air reminded her, and then she remembered the note, the request to trust, and she dressed carefully, choosing the blue dress without fully knowing why, her hands steady but her thoughts racing, and when she stepped outside, Daniel was already waiting, calm but alert, like someone standing on the edge of an important moment, and he guided her down a quiet street toward a small cafe near the water, the kind of place that looked untouched by time, and as they approached, Emily slowed, her heart pounding for reasons she could not yet name, and then she saw him standing near the window, tall, familiar, older but unmistakable, and the world seemed to narrow to that single instant as memories rushed in all at once, not gentle, not cruel, just powerful, and Michael turned when he sensed her presence, his expression shifting from calm to stunned recognition, and neither of them spoke at first, because words felt too small to hold what lived between them, and Daniel broke the silence with a soft voice, explaining without drama that he had found Michael months earlier while sorting through old letters and stories, that he had listened to Emily more than she realized over the years, and that he believed some love stories deserved another chance to speak, and then Daniel stepped away, not running, not hiding, just giving space like someone who understood that some moments must belong only to the people living them, and Michael spoke slowly, his voice careful, saying he never meant to disappear from her life, that timing and fear had pulled them apart, that he had carried her memory quietly through marriages that failed and years that felt unfinished, and Emily listened, tears forming but not falling, because what she felt was not sadness but release, as if something locked inside her had finally been seen, and they sat together, speaking honestly about the years between, about choices made with good intentions and painful results, about loss that shaped them differently but deeply, and Emily told him about her husband with respect, about love that had been real but different, and Michael listened without jealousy, only understanding, and outside the window the lake shimmered, steady and patient, and time moved quickly as conversation flowed, laughter slipping in between heavy truths, comfort growing naturally without pressure, and Emily realized she was not the same woman she had been before, but neither was Michael the same man, and somehow that made the moment stronger, because it was built on who they were now, not who they used to be, and when they finally stood to leave, Emily saw Daniel watching from a distance, relief clear in his eyes, and in that look she understood the depth of his gift, that this was never about control or fixing her, but about honoring her heart, and as Emily and Michael walked along the lake afterward, side by side, their hands brushing but not yet holding, she felt grounded, awake, present in a way she had not felt in years, and she knew that whatever happened next did not need promises or certainty, because the true surprise had already happened, the moment when the past met the present and instead of breaking her, it made her feel whole again. The afternoon moved quickly as Emily and Michael walked along the lake, their steps unplanned but steady, talking about ordinary things at first, the weather, the town, the years that had passed, then slowly moving into deeper truths without forcing them, sharing how life had shaped them into quieter, stronger versions of themselves, and Emily felt something new growing inside her, not excitement alone but calm, the kind that comes when fear loosens its grip, and Michael spoke about regret without bitterness, about lessons learned too late but carried forward with care, and Emily shared how grief had taught her patience, how loneliness had sharpened her sense of what truly mattered, and as they walked, Daniel stayed at a distance, watching not with worry but with peace, knowing his role was done, and Emily noticed that too, realizing her son had become someone who could give without asking for anything back, and that realization filled her with pride and gratitude, and later they sat on a bench as the sun dipped lower, light stretching across the water, and Michael asked nothing of her, offered no promises, only honesty, saying he was glad to see her happy, even if this moment was all they ever shared. And Emily felt the weight of that respect, that kindness, and she reached for his hand not out of need but choice, feeling how natural it was, how unforced, and in that simple gesture she understood that love did not have to be loud to be real, that it could arrive quietly, shaped by time, strengthened by loss. And as evening came, they returned to the lodge where Daniel waited, and Emily hugged her son tightly, holding him longer than usual, whispering thank you without explaining, because some gratitude is too deep for words. And that night they shared dinner together, laughter mixing with reflection, no heavy talks, just warmth. And when Emily went to her room later, she stood by the window looking at the lake under the stars, realizing she no longer felt stuck in the past or afraid of the future, and she knew that whatever happened next would unfold naturally, without rushing, without fear. And the next morning brought goodbyes filled with hope rather than sadness, Michael leaving with a promise not of forever but of staying in touch, of letting life guide them gently. And as Emily and Daniel drove back toward the city, the road felt different, lighter, and Emily smiled quietly, understanding that what began as a simple family trip had become something far greater, not because it changed her life overnight, but because it reminded her she was still alive, still worthy of love, still open to new beginnings. And as the city skyline came into view, Emily closed her eyes for a moment, holding on to that truth, ready to step forward with a heart no longer guarded by fear, but guided by hope.